Hello YouTube, it's a beautiful day here in Orange County, California at John Wayne Airport, and we're going to do the V3. Now, just to give you some background, those of you who didn't see the previous ones, there is an online training air traffic control service called Pilotedge. And it's a professional training network in that schools use it to teach ATC principles. The areas that you can fly in California are fully staffed with well-trained and paid air traffic controllers, pretty much 15 hours a day, every day of the year. So you can guarantee you're always going to get coverage, and they do things by the book. Now, they have a series of training programs and exams that go along with it. So I've done the V1 exam, which was fairly straightforward. It was simple pattern work. I did the V2 exam, which was a single cross-country hop from one airport to another. The V3 steps things up considerably. Before we actually get in the aircraft, I want to talk you through exactly what we're going to do. Now, I'm using a website that is freely available to all called skyvector.com. Here's what it looks like. Now, the reason we're using this, well, it explains exactly why I've been so terrified about doing this exam. And a number of people have said, when are you going to do the V3, Froogle? When are you going to do the V3? I've been putting it off because it scares me. The route we're going to fly is not actually... I'm sorry, I'm a little bit... Still got a bit of a cold. The route we're going to fly is not actually that tough. The toughness is the air traffic control aspect. And again, that's really what Pilotedge is all about. Not so much can you master every facet of your aircraft, but do you know how to work with ATC? We are starting right here, John Wayne in Orange County. And what we're going to do, what you have to do for the V3 is transition the Bravo airspace. Now, Bravo airspace is this big mass of blocky blocks that are surrounding LAX. Airspace in the United States is split into a number of classes. Around an airport, you have the Charlie airspace, so that's all this stuff around Orange County, that's Charlie airspace, and then these large blue blocks are the Bravo airspace. Now, the Bravo airspace here around LAX is intimidating, daunting, and terrifying for a whole number of reasons. Let me show you why. First and foremost, it is one of the busiest airspaces on the planet. They have a lot of aircraft flying in and flying out of here. And the airspace, the Bravo airspace around that airport is very, very tightly controlled and split into shelves. If you look here, for example, you can see that this block of airspace right here is controlled from 5,000 feet to 10,000 feet. And as we go along here, this is controlled from 2,500 feet to 10,000 feet. Then lower, 2,000 feet, then down to sea level and landing. You see a pattern here? It's high to low to lower to ground. This is one of the possible approach routes into LAX. So aircraft are actually coming in here and then they're being vectored around or following their SIDS and stars, their stars in this case, and their transitions. And as they fly through this airspace, they are descending and descending and descending. So by having these controlled blocks of airspace, we can pretty much ensure that no aircraft are likely to collide. If you try and fly a Cessna through here and you fly it below these shelves, for example, then you're going to be completely fine. If you want to fly it within those shelves or just within the Bravo airspace, then you're going to have a problem. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The V3 specifies that we have to take off, transition Bravo airspace 2 times using 2 different routes, and then land. Tricky. Now, if we look down here, you can see that the key area that's going to kill us is this one. This big block here, which is very, very tightly controlled airspace from the ground all the way up to 10,000 feet, because that is where aircraft are taking off from and landing. So pretty much anywhere from the ground up to 10,000 feet, there could be a very fast-moving, very heavily loaded jet full of people. So in order to transition this airspace, what we have are things called routes. There are little mini routes. They're not all called mini routes, but there are basically routes that we can fly as a VFR aircraft. One is the coastal route, and one is the mini route. Now, if we zoom in down here, you can see the coastal route has us. Here's the Bravo airspace, all clearly marked out. To cross LAX, it says that we need to contact SoCal approach, and then we need to follow the 123 radial into LAX, and then the 323 radial away from LAX. That would be the coastal route. And it's called coastal because obviously we are on the coast right here. Alternatively, coming back, let's fly to the east of the airport via the mini route. Here's the mini route. And again, we need to get clearance before we do this. We're actually going to be speaking to Santa Monica, who might then hand us off to LAX, but we go to the Santa Monica VOR here, and then from the Santa Monica VOR we fly 128 degrees down, and then cross that scary bit of airspace right there directly over the airport, and then 128 again until we are released, usually out to Hawthorne, and then we can say what we're going to do. So for our route, those are the 2 routes that we're going to fly. We're going to take off from John Wayne You can already hear the nerves in my voice. You can take off from John Wayne down here. It's really quite intimidating because it's Pilotedge, and Pilotedge is very exacting. Down here, we're going to follow their instructions until they release us. Then we're going to turn out this way, try to intercept that 123 radial there, all the way up to LEX, and then through the airspace until finally we're going to get released somewhere around here, at which point we will need to descend underneath this 5,000 foot shelf. So we'll descend to about 4,000, 4,500, maybe less, and then we'll head directly back into Santa Monica. Now, because we're going to be less than 5,000, we don't need clearance to enter this block of airspace. So we will be told at some point, stay clear of the Bravo airspace, but if we are less than 4,000, we are clear of the Bravo airspace because it's a three-dimensional shelf. So 4,000, 3,000, 2,500 is what we're going to do. Fly direct to Santa Monica. At that point, we're going to say, hey guys, we really want to transition the Bravo via, in this case, the mini route, crossing LAX, and away we go. The tricky bit here, as I said, is just the radios, managing the radios, staying on top of who you're supposed to be speaking to, what you are supposed to be saying, and in particular where you are supposed to be when you say these things. There are very, very hard and fast rules here. You cannot, under any circumstances, enter the Bravo airspace without clearance. If you do, it is a problem. It is a severe problem, and in the real world you'll get in a lot of trouble. And Pilotedge tries to enforce that as well. So, you know, given that it's a training network, we need to do things completely by the book. Anyway, let's go and jump in the aircraft and set it up, and then we'll get our clearance and see how well we do and actually take the V3 exam. So there's our aircraft. It is the Coronado Cessna 206 Stationair. It's a beautiful aircraft. It's a little bit fast for a Cessna, but not so fast as things are going to get out of hand very, very quickly. And it does have the added benefit of having the brand new GPS system in X-Plane 10.3 built in, which we're going to use quite a little bit to keep an eye on where we are in relationship to the various airspaces. Let's jump in and start setting her up. Now obviously this is a VFR flight, so I am using track IR. I do need to be able to look around. Before we start, we'll make sure the brake is on. Our fuel is switched where it should be, which is good. Set those cow flaps. What is the top? Top is open? Yep, that is open. Okay. So, let's put the master switches on. I'm using my Cytec panel for this. We'll put the beacon on. And mixture rich. Props full. Turn the key and hope she starts. Good. And we'll just let her idle. About 1300. I do have the sound in the aircraft turned down. Many of you who saw my video on this aircraft know this is actually a very, very, very loud aircraft. The way the Coronado have modeled it. So now that's coming up. Just let it warm up. We'll turn the avionics on. It's actually a bug in the new GPS and you can't turn it off, so people are going to scream at me about things being turned on when I flick the avionics switch. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. There we go. We will turn on nav and com 2 down here. We will turn on the transponder, which is on VFR. Now, let's set up our altitudes. I know already that once we get cleared out of here, we're going to be cleared up to VFR at or below 2400. So let's try and adjust this to 2400-ish. I really still have a lot of problems with these dials, so I'm not going to be able to get 24 exactly. That'll do. Good. And we will set that as armed. What we will also do, we're going to be given a heading when we take off that is probably 220 or 240. I'm going to set that up now, and then we'll adjust it after we speak to ATC. So that's all done. Now looking back over at Sky Vector here it is once again, we can see that for coastal route we need to be tuned to 113.6. 113.6, okay? So, and that's the 123 radial. Well, obviously we're not going to fly 123 degrees, that would be flying us away, so we need to go to reciprocal. So before we do anything, let's set the frequency in. We can do that with the new GPS pop-out, which is wonderful. So we're going down here, I've already got it, 113.6. And the radial that we want, well, it's the 123, but it's the reciprocal, so we'll just make the bottom here point to 123. Now it's an analog dial, which makes things a little bit of a challenge. It's about there. That's good. So that is set, our radios are set. What we need to do now is go ahead and speak to, well not speak to, but listen into the ATIS. We need to get the weather. And the ATIS here at John Wayne is on 126. So let's pop up here and we'll tune this down to up to 126. Now you can roll the mouse wheel with this one now. I always forget that. And I still have a problem with this rolling the mouse wheel on the minor numbers, but there we go. Let's make that active.
Orange County, John Wayne Information Juliet. 1400 Zulu weather. Sky conditions 4,000, scattered 12,000, scattered 35,000, scattered visibility more than 10. Temperature to 6, dew point 16. Wind to 30 at 6, altimeter to 991. Arriving and departing runway 19 right. Advise on initial contact you have Juliet.
So we have information Juliet when we speak to air traffic control. There's a fairly light wind and our barometric pressure is 29991, which I think we pretty much got over here. Yeah. So we're all set. So the next one we need to talk to is clearance. Now clearance for us is going to be on 118.0. So let's dial that in. 118.0. We'll just pop this straight up the top, and after that we're going to need to speak to the ground. Now ground for us, we're on the east side of the airport, so that's going to be 120.8. 120, come on, 0.8. So we have clearance and we have ground. Once we start speaking to ground, then we'll switch that over to tower as well. Now what we need to do when we speak to clearance is tell them exactly what we intend to do. We are a VFR flight, we don't need a flight plan, but we do need to tell them exactly what we're planning to do, which is transition to Bravo airspace, and which route we're going to use to take it. Now obviously, since this is my V3, and I'm so nervous, we're going to tell them that this is the V3 as well. Wish me luck. John Wayne clearance, November 8875 Echo is a Cessna Centurion 206 on the east ramp, looking for the coastal route through the Bravo with Juliet.
November 8857 Echo, John Wayne clearance on departure, flight heading 220, maintain VFR at or below 2,400 until advised, departure 127.2, squawk 727
On departure, fly heading 220, maintain VFR at or below 2400, departure frequency 127.2 and squawk 7273, 75 Echo.
Alright. 5 Echo, read back correct.
Let's go ahead and set our squawk code in, so 7273, 7273. Now at John Wayne we do put that on Alt straight away. And everything that we presumed is correct, so heading 220, we'll just double check that is good. We are climbing to 2400 feet, which is good. Our departure frequency, that's actually SoCal departure, is 127.2. Let's go ahead and switch our radios now over to ground. Like so, and we will set up the next frequency, which is going to be tower. Now tower for us is going to be 19 left, so 119.9. Like so. We've got our clearance. All we need to do now is speak to ground and ask if we can actually start moving towards a taxiway, towards a runway. John Wayne ground, November 8875 Echo on the east ramp, ready for taxi.
Centurion 8875 Echo, John Wayne ground, runway 19 left at Kilo, taxi via Alpha Hotel Charlie.
19 left at Kilo, taxi via Alpha Hotel and Charlie. And I'm so sorry, I forgot, I was going to say as well, can this be for the V3?
November 8875 Echo, absolutely.
Wonderful, thank you, 75 Echo. Alright, so we got our clearance, he knows we're doing our test. Alpha Hotel and Charlie out to Kilo. So let's turn our nav lights on, let's turn our taxi lights on. We will release the parking brake down here, we're nicely warmed up I think. And away we go. Let the adventure begin. Try not to collide with nearby aircraft on the way. Now where we're parked is actually a little bit tricky to navigate around the airport here. It's just visually wrong. But this is Alpha that we're crossing, Hotel. is coming up in front of us over here. We're just going to follow that yellow line. It's early morning, which isn't helping. The light is a little bit misleading. And there's Kilo there, so slowing down now gently. Is a bit of a friction issue with this aircraft, and it will just stop. You need to be aware of that. Coming back on the gas a little bit. Don't cross the line. And we are there. So before we go any further, I'm going to make sure my trims are set, which they are good. Beacon and nav are on, so now we'll switch over, and also we'll dial in SoCal departure. So there's 119.9, and the next frequency he gave us, looking at my notes, is 127.2. 127. Rolling it down now gently so we don't go too far past it. 0.2. We're good. So, John Wayne Tower, November 8875 Echo, runway 19 left at Kilo, ready for takeoff.
Centurion 8875 Echo, John Wayne Tower, runway 19 left at Kilo, cleared for takeoff. Wind variable at 5.
Clear for takeoff, 75 Echo. Alright, strobes on, lights on, fuel pumps on. Let's put our flaps down. Remember, after takeoff, we're heading to 220 at or below 2,400 feet. I think we're good. Let's gently ease her up now. Trying to trim the climb a little bit. Let's go flaps up, landing lights off, fuel pumps off. Once we get a decent altitude, about 300 or 400 feet, we'll start our turn to 220, which would be now. And continue our climb. Now at this point, just to reduce my workload a bit, we're going to put the yaw damper on, autopilot, heading, and arm, and vertical speed. There. And away we go. So let's just check everything. Landing lights are off, fuel pumps are off, strobes are on, all the other lights are on. I think we're good. Might need to turn the aircraft volume down a little bit. Let's do that now before he speaks to us again.
Alright, 875 Echo radar contact. Maintain VFR at or below 2,400 until advised.
Maintain VFR at or below 2,400, 75 Echo. So watching our altitude now is 1,500. So let's pull our manifold pressure back a little bit here. And out props.
75 Echo contact SoCal approach 127.2, good day.
Over to 127.2, 75 Echo. SoCal approach November 8875 Echo is at 2,000, climbing 2,400.
8875 Echo, SoCal departure, roger, resume navigation, VFR climb approved, John Wayne altimeter 2991.
Resume navigation, 75 Echo, thank you. Alright, so VFR climb approved, so we can start climbing, which we will do shortly. We're actually going to make our way out to the coast here and follow it up until we get a little bit closer to where we need to contact them again for the next part, which is actually to start on the coastal route. So let's just make our turn to the right here. we'll start our climb up now to 4,500. That'll do. Arm, vertical speed. And up we go. Now we're looking for a visual reporting point, which is the Vincent Thomas Bridge. As we get close to that, we're going to need to call it to SoCal again to actually get our clearance. SoCal approach, November 8875 Echo, is a Cessna Centurion 206. We're about 5 miles southeast of the Vincent St. Thomas Bridge at 4,500, requesting the coastal route.
We're 8875 Echo, roger, cleared to the LA passport airspace with the coastal route. Maintain VFR at 5,500, LA altimeter 2993.
Clear through the coastal route, maintain 5,500, 75 Echo. Okay, so let's climb up again. So I always hate this thing. We're going to set this up now to 55. That'll do. Vertical speed now. Make it, whoa, other way for it, won't make it climb. And let's see if we can intercept that radial. Which I think is going to be off to the left. This for me is always the nerve-wracking bit, intercepting that radial. There's LAX, watching this needle to start moving. And I always look at this and I think, it's moving, when it really isn't. I actually really do think it is. Very, very slowly moving. It is moving, it is moving. So we're good. Let's turn a little bit more aggressively, I think, so that we don't do something stupid. And we will engage heading once we roll level. There. Sorry, nav, not heading. We were already in heading hold. We're coming up on our altitude now, 5,500. Our needle is definitely moving. So we should see the aircraft start to turn in a second. Now I'm using the autopilot to be precise. The idea of this route is precision. Obviously it's very, very busy airspace. And on Pilotedge, not only are there a lot of drones flying around, there's a lot of humans flying around training as well. You can see a lot of dots out there, which are other aircraft. So here's our turn. I'm going to leave the GPS up here so you can see where we're at. And we are 17.9 miles now away from LAX. As we get closer, we'll see a lot more flashing dots in the sky. It's a very, very busy airspace. You can see one already. There's a high aircraft up there. And that's really all there is to it. We're going to fly now for 17 miles, cross LAX. Some distance out the other side, we will be released and told that we are free to resume our navigation and change frequency. At that point, we need to be thinking about the return trip. Now, for the return trip, I can show you very briefly here. Let me drag my browser across here. For the return trip, it's going to be on the mini route, so we're going to need to tune to 110.8 and fly direct to that, and then follow 128 all the way down. It's a lot easier actually coming back. It's just we need to be a lot lower as well, about 2,500 feet when we do this. But we don't need to worry about that just yet. We could probably set that frequency in as the standby frequency, so we'll go ahead and do that. So down here, 110.8. Well, I've already got it because I previously practiced this flight, so it's already set. We don't need to worry about anything. LAX is dead ahead, 15 miles to go. Scenery here, by the way, is all free. It's the AL Pilot X meshes with Sim Heaven's VFR Los Angeles scenery. It's very, very beautiful and free. What could be better? And again, my fear with this is really the radios. Everything that we've done so far, you know, my flying could have been better, I'm sure, and I'm sure there'll be people wanting to post in the comments, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. The focus here is really the radios, the ATC, the interaction with ATC, changing the frequencies properly, responding properly. That's really what the focus is on Pilotedge. Procedural flying and dealing with air traffic control. And to be honest, it terrifies me. These guys speak very fast, I know I do as well, but to me they speak very fast with a foreign accent, which is a little off-putting. You got to really keep your wits about you and keep listening out every time they start speaking to hear if you hear your call sign.
Centurion 75 Echo, contact SoCal approach 134.9er.
Over to approach on 134.9er, 75 Echo. SoCal approach Centurion November 8875 Echo at 5,500.
Centurion 8875 Echo, SoCal approach, LA altimeter 29993.
I think we're good on the altimeter. And there is LAX, right below us. Massive, sprawling, very busy airport. So yeah, I don't have a lot of detailed airport scenery for LAX, but you get the rough idea. Now we're on 134.9er, which is SoCal approach. Our next frequency is actually going to be Santa Monica Tower on 120.1. So we'll dial that in now. Oops, there's my problem with not being able to go up on the frequencies. Let's dial this down once again. 3, 2, 1, and I said that was 120, so we're all set to speak to Santa Monica when we need to. Just crossing LAX now. Watch the needles. There's the beeping. You see the needles flashing. We just passed LAX. Now at this point we would want to turn to 323. There. We're not directly on the needle right now, but we are very close to the VOR, which is why there's going to be some deviation. That's quite normal. Look at all those aircraft. Just kind of lining up to come into LAX. Now he's not going to release us until we're clear of the Bravo, which is going to be all the way up here. At that point we need to make sure we remain clear of the Bravo, and as I said at the start of this video, that means we need to get underneath the 5,000 foot shelf. So we'll descend, we can descend to about 4,500, probably later on down to 2,500. It's what Santa Monica are likely to ask us for anyway, and we need to do that out of here. Then we can head direct into Santa Monica and we should be good, and finish our return leg, which is going to be down the mini route on the 128 radial from Santa Monica all the way across LAX again, on the other side this time, and then finally to land at Torrance on the coast. So that's it for part 1. I know what happens, but do you? Leave a comment in the comment section below and tell me whether you think I'm gonna pass or fail in the upcoming part 2. What we've just done is fairly easy, fairly straightforward, albeit full of nerves and worry and scarediness, but part 2 has a lot more frequency changes and a lot more complex stuff going on. Pass or fail? Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.